Good morning, October 25th, 2024, Gresham-Barlow School District, policy meeting. In attendance, Chris Howitt, Kathy Keithley, John Cook, Sarah Avery, and Diane Jones. All right, so good morning. We have several policies to review today, and I'm going to just pass it right over to Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Chair. We will start off today with CBG, evaluation of superintendent. This is all pretty recommended. It's just cleanup language at this point. Take out board, his, her, etc. I did consult with a few people about evaluation processes, like superintendent, should they follow the administrative process in our evaluation handbook? Should they follow a different process? And really what it comes down to is the board would write that into the contract with the superintendent. So it should be covered in the contract. So I don't know that we need to add anything to that. Open to discussion, obviously.
In the bracketed language, it has at least once each year, and I thought that was what they changed, that that's actually mandatory.
Yeah, we can add that in. I agree that that's mandatory.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what is?
It's in the first sentence. The board will formally evaluate, and it's got bracketed suggestion at least once each year. It's required.
I think we need to put that in as required, so. Okay, other questions?
Really minor, but the first sentence of the second paragraph, you change board to small b, but it's still big B in the top paragraph. Is that?
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, it's the board and a board meeting. I don't know.
Board,
Yeah,
no, but I don't, I think that might be the board, because when you're.
because then in the
speaking about
third
board,
paragraph, it's the
but
board.
The sentence above that is just says board policy, so that probably should be small b.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
okay, yeah.
I agree.
So third line, it says performance board policy. So that would be a little b.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the third.
Yeah, so the third line where it says, yep.
So go down then to the third paragraph, the board's discussion and conferences with and about. And that their performance will be conducted in executive unless the superintendent requests a session open to the public period, such period, and executive session.
Oh, I see.
And if
Yeah.
it's such
This is such
an
as.
executive session, then that's not a correct.
I think it's just an executive, because they crossed out however such.
An executive session
Yeah.
will not include a general evaluation of district goal. So you could, and it wouldn't be such as, I don't think such as.
No.
I think it needs to be a capital A and
Yeah.
executive session.
That, it seems it's either. It feels like it should say, an executive session, no, that one. If an executive. If an executive session is conducted, comma, it will not include a general evaluation. It feels like there should be some directive to that specific, instead of just generally, or even saying as a reminder. If this.
Sort of like if an executive session is.
Well, it
something.
specific to this review. So if this review is conducted in executive session, it will not include a general evaluation of any district goal, objective, or operation. There, it's just reminding you that if you're gonna talk about evaluation, you can't do general district goal objective. So it feels like we need to somehow relate it to this specific topic.
I think that clause right there, if this review.
Is held.
Is held in an executive
Yeah.
session. This review.
Is that good for you, Chris?
Yes. And then the,
I
when
think
you're
get rid
done
of
with that,
and
John.
in executive session.
Held in, thank you,
Mhm.
Yeah.
thank you.
If this review is held in the executive session.
And I don't, are you ready?
Almost,
Okay.
hang on. Good. If. Oh, executive session. Got it. Okay, yeah.
I don't know what because we have the board. And then we have lowercase, the superintendent. Is the superintendent?
That would still be, it would be a lowercase grammatically,
Okay,
Unless you're speaking about the,
the individual.
yes, and in this case, so I will, to that point, fourth sentence up from the very bottom. The board, when we're talking about
Uh-huh.
the actual board, it's
right.
capital, but then you go to the end of that sentence, pursuant to board policy, that would be small b.
Small b.
Mhm. Where are you seeing that again?
It's the third sentence.
Oh, I got it. I see
At
it.
the end on the far right side.
Okay.
Just a small meeting.
Yep.
And I will say that is something it goes back and forth.
Oh, I
Uh-huh.
bet.
From year to year, from
Yeah.
staff to staff. It's a constant, we're constantly
And
capitalizing
it
and
doesn't matter to
lowercasing.
me, I mean, you could capitalize all board in here, but you can't have a couple small,
Right.
just
Anybody
either all
else,
big, all small, or
anybody else see any other cleanup things?
you said something about, it's not in here, but if the board, or just say if the board wanted to evaluate something specific, or what was that about?
What I think of what I was saying was, I did a little investigating, like, should the evaluation process be included in policy or not? And really, that evaluation process has to be included, but in the superintendent's contract, not has to be included. It's typically included in the superintendent's individual
Oh.
contract.
So if you want.
Which is
to
that last
review
sentence.
Yeah.
Specific, something specific, put it in the contract.
In the
Yeah,
contract, yes.
yeah. You don't put the details.
And that's where the
of it.
dates come in of like, this will be completed by
This
such and
day.
such date,
Mhm.
but usually in the contract.
Right.
Policy.
The policy just says we have to do an evaluation. At least once a year. The contract could say we could do it every month.
It could.
Yeah. We could say you're gonna do it in September, which would be silly, but.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
I'd go with July. It's easier.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Other things substantive or cleanup related to this policy? Forward to the next work session.
Yeah.
Okay. CDG. Okay. The next policy up is disposal of district property. Last time, I believe, I'm looking at the notes now. We elected to bring this back and go to facilities and get some background for all of you related to disposal of district property and what's done, especially with bigger items. So this is version one. There were two versions. This one, I believe, if I remember correctly, we discussed this as being the one that has more oversight from the board in it. We could add to it. When I went to facilities, there were some questions last time about bigger items, trucks and things like that that get obsoleted.
Mhm.
Those actually go to an auction website. We don't just get rid of them. So we do get some income from them. The most recent example of the truck one of our trucks that was stolen, ended up being found really in
Trashed.
disrepair,
Mhm.
trashed. That went to that auction site for parts and things. And so we did get some money from that.
The only thing I have a question about is because we've gone back and forth on the use of the word.
Yes.
And so I understand what this one is trying to say, but is there another word for property? Fixed assets, material goods? I mean, is there another that defines it more as something I can touch and feel? As opposed to
Real property.
real property? Yeah,
Mhm.
and so I don't know if there's a better word
Well, so
or a descriptive paragraph.
this one, it has more board oversight.
Does.
So is there a different policy that will have less board oversight?
There was a version 2 that I could bring back to you.
Well, no. Let's see. See, that's why we don't do this so early. So we viewed the surplus policy.
Yes,
And it seemed to incorporate everything, fixed like the, you know,
Land, fixed that, or it
real
was do-
property, trucks, fixed assets, but anything is a fixed asset.
yes.
I mean, actually, it's usually if it goes on the depreciation schedule, it's gotta be above a certain threshold, but so. Are we going to delineate real property and everything else?
Mhm.
Are we gonna keep it all the same and not specify real property? Because if we're gonna make this have more border oversight, then I wanna see the other one that doesn't.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah.
you see my point?
Yeah, I do.
Are there two or
I do.
are there one? If there are two, we need to see them together and this needs to define real property.
And happy to bring that back to you, and I see the difference.
Yeah,
And
because
I
I
and I
thought
agree
we were
with both of
talking
you.
about it, yeah, that we were
Mhm.
actually, I thought we were going down the road of having one separate for
Mhm.
real property, because
I
it
thought so
had
too.
other legal obligations, other context, where this, we didn't want to hold up, we're getting rid of computers and textbooks and a refrigerator.
Here's the delineation, I think.
Mhm.
We know that, we couldn't sell a real property unless it was surplus. That was a legal requirement.
Yes,
And so if we have to do that, then we should have it in policy that real property is separate from fixed
Mhm.
that. If there is an actionable item that we have to take before we can do something
Mhm.
and not the others on one specific property and not others, which is real property, then either, I don't know.
And I see the process is different, like, if I'm looking at textbooks, we bought a new round. Surplusing and obsoleting textbooks is a pretty simple process. There it all is, you list it out, we don't need it anymore, we're gonna get
We're
rid
not
of it,
using
sell
them,
it.
it's no
Yeah.
longer,
Same with older equipment, et cetera. How, I don't know that I have seen yet, and I don't know that OSBA has been able to provide us with. What's the process for surplusing real property?
mhm.
And is there a process to that? Is there some different way of doing it, or are we doing it in the same way?
Except with property, we need to have a more formal valuation done.
Yes.
Whereas on a textbook, you're not getting a third party to evaluate whether or not that
Agreed.
textbook has value.
Agreed.
Okay, so
Mhm.
is if we are required to surplus it before we sell it,
Mhm.
that requirement is in state law
I would hope, and I haven't looked.
or real estate law, whatever it is.
There's a couple of things, yeah.
So, but then you look at our policy and it says the board may at any time declare property as surplus.
Mhm.
So I guess I just want clarification that if we have to declare it, we don't have to have that stated requirement in a policy. But you see what I mean? If we
Yes, I
have to, then this is saying that we may or may not, we still have purview to not. And it's true, but only if we, I don't know, it gets a little convoluted. I don't wanna put anything in policy that we aren't required to do
Agreed.
so. Cause that's just silly.
Yes,
And if we are beholden to do it based on some other, requirement, either state real estate law or state property law, I don't know.
Sarah, here's what I think that I would like to do next is if I could get on the line with an OSBA attorney directly. And start asking the questions of, this is where our challenges are, what do you recommend? Is there something out there that we could add? And then I can bring that back to you, and I'll bring both versions back to you and their suggestions.
Yeah, and Go ahead.
If you could ask not just what do you recommend, but also what are we required? What is the requirement? Because if he recommends something, that's great.
Mhm.
I wanna know what we have to do, because then based on his recommendation, what we have to do, then I'll figure out what I'm comfortable with.
And when we're talking about what we have to do specific to real property.
Yes,
well, real property and just kind of clean up what feels like a mix of terminology. So is there another way of making it very clear that when we say declare district property as surplus, we're not talking about real property.
Yep.
And second of all, surplus, in the case of the textbooks, they're not surplus, I think of as we have too many of something. And that's not the case. The case is they're no longer current.
Yeah,
They're
that's the
obsolete.
surplus.
Right, they're
That's a good
obsolete.
distinction.
And so I'm kind of trying to figure out where we put that. And,
And then in that same case, books can be obsolete and surplus.
okay,
Mhm.
John, I want to clarify something.
Yes,
When I ask what is required for us to include, there's a requirement that we have to do an action by law.
Mhm.
But I want to say, in terms of what is required, that we have in this policy. I don't want to put anything in that we aren't required to do unless we decide that it's
Mhm.
important.
so an example of that, Kathy, would be, do we want to put in, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah,
A big issue that came up several years ago, like probably more than 10, was when we had computer electronic equipment that was
Yep.
going to surplus.
Yep.
There was a soft understanding, not found in policy,
Mhm.
that we would be as environmentally aware
Mhm.
in getting rid of it. We weren't just pushing them to the landfill. And I think we do that as practice.
We do.
But if we have a new crop of people that are not aware of that, and someone comes in and says, hey, you don't have to do all that stuff. We can take it, throw it in the truck and get rid of it for you for $10. But if we have in here somewhere that
Mhm.
the board wants it to be as the least amount of environmental impact.
Yep.
And whether that's a car, electronics, heavy equipment, even books.
Yep.
You know, any of that, what is the impact? Can we make sure, as best we can, that we're being responsible in the removal of stuff from our.
Understood. So let me make sure to repeat these back to you all, so I can get some clear answers for them. It's what are we required to do state law wise for real property? We need to know that. That we could probably include in policy, but we don't want to go above and beyond. And the mix of terminology, equipment, supplies, books, and real property. How do we come up with language that does separate that and makes it clear? And surplus versus obsolete, have a discussion about that, what's that mean? And make sure that we're clear in our policy with that, and bring back both versions to this group next time.
And environmental impact.
Yep, sorry, it's in here, I just didn't read it.
Yeah.
Back both versions. This group at the next. Okay,
And the final muddy,
sure.
this does not imply that we have to get rid of it in any way that brings money into the district. So for instance, again, back to the electronics, that we have available small quantity
Mhm.
of devices that are going to graduating seniors in
Yes.
some of our schools. And so that's something where we're giving it to them
Mhm.
under some guidelines.
Yes.
And so it should be somewhere in here that how, and not down to the specifics, but just some way that it's not, yeah, the district may dispose of them in another manner. That may cover it. That second paragraph. If we don't get money, we can agree that using them while they still have some life in them, but not life for what we're using them for. And, you know,
Okay. Have that as well. I took those notes, you're good on that.
Okay,
on its way
thank
to
you.
being a 3-page
Okay.
policy.
We could, I could make it a three-page policy if you want. I can come up with all kinds of stuff.
Well, it almost, I mean, this is one where, would it be best served to put an AR with this one?
Maybe,
That would cover some of this, so it's not in policy
Mhm.
specifically, but has more of the directional components of it,
that may be something we should consider.
so.
Mm.
And then that's easier as things change to change the AR and not the overriding.
Yep.
List of things that are in the policy, because who knew 10 years ago we were gonna be getting rid of computers? or phones.
Understood. All right, the next policy up, if we are finished, don't want to move it forward too quickly, is the non-discrimination policy.
Mhm.
There are bracketed additions in here, for you all to consider. And that is really the only real change.
So it's designating somebody.
Yeah, the board designates as a district civil rights coordinator what, currently, I believe the superintendent designates the civil rights coordinator. And it's been usually my office, so I'm the civil rights coordinator as well as the Title IX coordinator at this point.
So the choices are the board designate or the board directs the superintendent.
Correct.
I like the second one.
Any other thoughts on that? Okay. Any other thoughts on other things in there while we've had the chance to review it?
There's a lot of ORSs. So-
Yes, there are. Okay,
Essentially, so we're taking, there's multiple brackets.
and I should mention
Insert position.
at the bottom, that addition of footnote number 2, it just references ORS, and I think that's valuable. I have a problem with that, but it
Okay.
represents the responsibilities as the coordinator.
Okay.
Superintendent, or the board directs the superintendent.
Committee is recommending adopting the second sentence.
I'm looking to see where the first footnote is actually, where it's at in the page.
Oh, we're in the policy. It's-
Oh, here it is, up in the very, it's in the second
Yep.
sentence, yeah, in the second, okay. And I don't know at this point, but at some point, the stuff that's in the footnote may wind up going in the first paragraph. We list a whole lot of things in the first paragraph and then we footnote some stuff.
Mhm.
Because the Crown Act was a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
Um. Let's let it go.
okay. We will take it, and here's what I'm hearing. Adopting the second, recommending to adopt the second bracketed sentence and adopting the second footnote. Okay.
Okay.
Take it to the board section. Evaluation of administrators is cleanup with some bracketed language and suggestions. I looked at this weeks ago, I believe that's it. Yes,
So on the brackets in that first paragraph,
yes.
do we have to pick one of those?
I don't think you have to, it's recommended. that
Is
you
it all of them? Because
can.
there's 3 different sentences there.
Mhm.
Yeah, the first, the second bracket. I mean, it's either once every 2 years.
Yep.
On a regular cycle, or at least once each year, so it's one of the 3.
Yeah,
It is. So here's what our current process is. The administrators are observed every year. They're on an evaluation cycle at one point. They get a summative evaluation at the end of the second year.
so the first bracket would be the way that we're doing it now.
Correct.
Okay,
They're observed every year, and then that information, observation data goes into the evaluation that they get once every 2 years.
Yes, the summative.
And so where is the recommendation of the formal evaluation be conducted at least once a year? Is that from OSBA?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it comes from. I'm assuming it is. From a professional standpoint, I think it's burdensome. But I'm happy to entertain conversations.
but we do with the new ones, they do get, as long as you're still on probation. you're
Probation
getting
is every
evaluated
year.
More frequently.
It's every year for the first 3 years.
And then
Probation.
after that, at least once.
Yes, so here's that
So
cycle,
you
like,
could do a second, you could do it every year if someone was needing.
yes, you could.
support.
And that's in the evaluation manual as well. So I'll run you through the whole process. Each year, an administrator sets goals to achieve.
Mhm.
Two of them are academic, one of them is professional.
Mhm.
So they do a self-evaluation, we review those goals, we have observations every year related to those goals. I have monthly conversations with them as well, check-ins. And then at the end of the second year of those processes, there's a summit evaluation that takes all of that information in over the 24 months, combines that, and there's a summit evaluation that comes in, and then they start over that next July 1st.
Okay. If the evaluation is based on, three goals, two academic and one professional, then
Mhm.
that makes sense to do it every 2 years,
It does.
because you can't.
Yeah.
You
Make
can't see,
progress.
yeah.
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 So based on that,
Mhm.
every 2 years is okay.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's again, it gives the caveat at least. So if someone is needing some assistance, then is it also spelled out in the administrator's contract?
It is, it's in the, you can look it up on the website in HR, the administrator's evaluation handbook is there,
Okay.
along with the rubrics. It's all available to the public.
what's, define for me administrative positions?
It's a variety, so you obviously have your principals and assistant principals, you have your district office administrators as well. Heidi, Tim, the directors. For Tracy and me, and our different, and Angela with our different contracts, we're still evaluated in that same manner. There are office managers that we have, that are also evaluated in this way. They are considered administrators as well. For instance, the, office managers at both the big high schools are
Okay.
considered administrators. They're evaluated this way also.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm hearing from the board, and let me type this in because I've got. So we have that you are recommending following the probation agreement. Let's see. Wait a second. Am I hearing from you both that taking this forward to the work session is sufficient without adding the bracketed sentences or with adding the first bracketed sentence in there?
The first bracketed
Okay.
sentence, since we have to choose something.
Yeah.
Then choose that first one.
Interesting, because that's already in policy, right?
Is it?
yeah.
Because it's not
that's-
great.
So it's not
But they
going,
just added brackets.
they just added
right?
brackets to show that if you,
That you could change it
you
to the other.
could change it to the other, so it doesn't
No
look like we
change.
are, yeah.
So it's no change, we're just not
except-
accepting the second sentence.
Well,
Taking out the gray bracketed area.
well, we're taking out administrative personnel and his, her.
Yes,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, those.
Yeah.
brackets. in
But
terms
no,
of the
but
brackets,
otherwise the
yeah.
brackets, no. Well.
so Sarah, let me make sure I'm following this too, since you've got a good handle on it.
Yeah.
So this is
we're-
already currently in policy.
So we're leaving this bracketed section that's not highlighted.
Oh, got it.
in,
Right, because
and
it's
then the
already there.
highlighted portion we're taking out,
Okay.
because those were the other options that we could have used, and then obviously we're changing administrator.
But I heard Chris say we keep this one too. Evaluations and support systems established by the district must evaluate administrators on a regular cycle.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I did not-
Oh, you didn't see that?
I don't think that's what she said.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay,
no,
then
no,
never
no, no,
mind.
no,
I'll be
no,
quiet.
no, 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 yeah,
Okay.
no, no.
So I was off base.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
all of that gray, we're not
All
accepting.
the gray
Right.
goes, yeah,
Okay.
I
Well, I
crossed
mean,
it off.
except for administrators instead of administrative personnel.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
Right, right.
gotcha.
But the optional gray brackets, we're
Yeah.
not gonna do those.
Okay, I am now clear. Thank you. Accepting. Okay.
And was there anything else other than just on the other pages, just changes some,
There's nothing else that I saw.
the, instead of and,
Yeah.
Mhm.
standards instead of thus.
Yes.
And crossing out done on a regular cycle because we described it in the first
We
paragraph.
did.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, so this one's moving forward to work session.
yes. So are we ready on the next one?
I think we are ready. I'm gonna get Noelle to come in because she's our expert on this.
Okay.
No, I'll walk down because my starting to pack up with a huge stretch. Thank you.
So we'll take a quick, want to take this off since. Take a 5 minute.
Is the person still shoot?
OSB about changes to our current policy.
All right,
So
we're
we'll
back to
discuss those
policy,
in
discussing a
couple
new
minutes,
model
if you don't
policy,
mind.
EBBB, and we have brought in Noel to assist with any questions that the board may have on this one. And so this is a brand new policy, John, is this,
It is.
okay? And
No, you can use it.
so as a brand new policy, did we have something in place before, or we just had operational things and now it's codified in policy?
It has been operational. We
Okay.
follow leaves, we follow accident injury report according to what BOLI and OSHA require us to do. And now new policy.
Okay, that just puts it all in one spot, so you don't have,
I'd hope so. I'll grab her copy. That way you can,
okay.
thank you.
And so did some of this come out of, because don't we have a safety committee?
It didn't come out of our safety committee, no.
Okay, so this, but they haven't looked at it.
No, they
See,
have not.
okay, again, because it's, you know, what's been going on, it's not as if we weren't reporting, doing and handling this, but now it'd be done on the same
Agreed.
manner.
Mhm.
Looks like Kathy's got some good notes, she's right.
No, it's just if we do, so is this, we give it a first brush and then it goes to safety committee? Would we assume it goes to them before? Not at all.
Not at all. The safety committee that we have, especially within the teacher contract, they are more wanting, they want to keep track of what our safety committees are doing in the building. Are they
Mhm.
tracking the data that we want? Are they tracking OSHA stuff and student behavior? So this is more that injury or illness to
Okay,
people come in. Would it be part of a safety committee at a building level? Yes. Would we consider it later? Yes, if it,
Mhm.
especially if there's a pattern, but it really isn't in their purview.
okay.
And does it also make it clearer, that there's, I'm not gonna say, well, I can't think of different words, it's sort of, but that there's no harm in reporting something.
There is
You know,
no harm.
And in fact, they should be, and it may show that maybe there's need for a training. If somebody is
Yes.
continually showing a fall issue or a ladder issue or something, then it would potentially mean a training or a different use of supplies or something.
We openly encourage people to err on the side of caution as opposed to not reporting.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have an incident report,
Uh-huh.
someone that isn't seeking medical attention,
Uh-huh.
that when an employee has like a scratch by
Mhm.
a sprained student or someone's tripped on the sidewalk or whatnot, the employee will fill out an incident report,
Okay,
and then it's sent in, documented. Excuse me, and then if it is something that needs to be escalated, the incident report is sent to facilities or to the building and or employee to let them know, yes, we received this.
we received 5 people
Mhm.
tripping on the same
Yeah, exactly.
spot in the sidewalk, maybe we ought to fix it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's two sentences I have questions about, though,
Okay.
like in the second, or in the first paragraph, the bracketed language is staff members report self-administered first aid treatment to an immediate supervisor. There are times when staff members put on Band-Aids or do
I was thinking
whatever,
about that, yeah.
and to me, it feels almost like over.
Yes.
Well, that's where I was trying to kind of get to.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but look at number two,
Mhm.
this point. For employees, first aid means any one treatment or subsequent observation of minor scratches, cuts, burns, splinters, or similar injuries that do
Mhm.
not ordinarily require medical care. So it's saying that that's exactly what they will report, so.
And it's
we
an
either-
OAR. Yeah.
Mhm. And can it be, however, it's decided to be able to keep track of it, a log of some kind or something, or even is an email acceptable? I would hope that
rather
it
do a
wouldn't be
I,
a log.
just to say this out loud,
Mhm.
we are going to report a splinter.
That's my concern.
Yeah,
How often, even here, seriously, paper cut.
I mean, the
Yeah.
problem is,
Yeah.
it is so,
yeah,
ridiculous in nature that no one's gonna do it anyway, even though it's an OAR and a policy.
And it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's another thing for an office staff, to head secretary, whoever to keep track of where they already. It goes back to that unfunded stuff.
No,
I'm not a fan. That was my
No.
question with this one. The other question I had is the last paragraph. I don't know where this came from, but they're specific that, this one. They're
In the event of
specific
work-related
that you
illness,
need to
mental health.
report the loss of an eye or an amputation.
Wow.
Where'd that come from?
Promotion, because OSHA's they're very sticklers with that. I mean, when it comes to those type of things, even if someone is hospitalized, like say they've been transported to the hospital and they are waiting to be seen, and then they have to be kept overnight, we'd have to report that to OSHA.
well, except now it's not even overnight, it's just going,
Just go, wow.
inpatient hospitalization.
And I'm saying this without any sarcasm.
Yeah.
If somebody loses an eye or needs an amputation,
I
we're
think
reporting
you're gonna
it.
be reporting that,
You know, that's not something that you would even want to hide.
right, you're not gonna put a Band-Aid on it.
No. So I'm not sure where this comes from.
Well, someone,
And that's not bracketed language either, they're just
Yeah.
including that.
They're including it.
no. Okay, so
well, wait, so amputations are only required to be reported, they result in bone loss.
but let's require the splinter.
Yeah, let's require the splinter. Mhm.
Oh my heavens. Well, there's isn't any amputate that doesn't have a bone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
Well,
my
I
gosh.
hear it doesn't have a bone.
Okay.
You know,
There's an
So there you
exception.
go. So if you-
It's make it.
But-
If I
but-
lose my
but-
ear,
but-
an accident, I
also
don't have
you
to
would-
report it.
You would never use the word amputate for an ear,
No. Well, guess you could.
I guess it did, I mean,
but not,
You
it is
wouldn't.
not a
I
typical
had my ear
thing.
taped.
So,
yeah.
so a couple things.
Uh-huh.
yeah, sorry,
Uh,
it's not funny,
well-
but it's how we're supposed to report it
Yes.
without it costing us a fortune or someone getting in trouble for not reporting.
Question number one,
Mm-hmm.
this is a model sample policy.
Yes.
Our first decision is, do we want to approve the said sample policy?
I'm looking right now.
If it's an option, then that's our first question.
It's required.
It's a
Okay,
required
so- Okay,
policy.
so now going on to my second one. In the first paragraph. If this is going to make sense, then we need to organize this paragraph, because when you have in there that all illnesses and injuries sustained by the employee, it looks like this policy is for employees.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the last sentence, all accidents involving employees, students, visiting public or district property will be reported immediately. That's the point of the policy.
Mhm.
That needs to go first. This policy oversees employees, students, visiting public,
Mhm.
and district policy, period.
Mhm.
Then we can talk about injuries and how, because the first sentence is only
Oh, I
about
see.
employees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is it
Yeah,
employees and students? Is there another somewhere else that it is there a different expectation of students, and that's why they pulled out employees separately for this sentence?
Or maybe they're thinking because there's two different entities. Cause workers' comp is covering the employees.
Case
Students,
would be covered.
yeah, and visitors.
Well, that may be, but in this case, it's a policy about how we're going to report. And so if you have pulled out employees for whatever reason, maybe there's a logical reason for it, that's fine. So then what's the rule on the students?
Well, and also
For the
the
visiting
sentence
public?
states that it'll be reported to a supervisor.
right,
But a
right.
student or a visiting public doesn't
Have
have
a
a supervisor.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I guess a student would be
The
a
site has a
teacher.
supervisor, so I guess
Okay.
you could go that way.
Yeah,
Then it should say site supervisor, not,
Mhm.
because if you don't define supervisor, that feels like it's a direct reporting relationship with an employee.
I agree with that as well.
Mhm.
So this is not very well,
no, it's not very well.
it's not very clear.
No, it's still not clear. So did we see it back in the April 2024 policy update?
No, this came with fall this year.
Okay, so we didn't see it the
No.
first time.
So
Okay.
one option is to note these, send it back and go, I mean, this is a required policy and it's so poorly written that I'm gonna rewrite it. I can,
Mhm.
No,
but we're paying for somebody else to, so we just need to go, yeah, this doesn't work at all. You need to try again. We'll look at it when you've done your work.
And I am still struggling with what we highlighted before. You're required to report a Band-Aid use. And then they had to be specific about loss of an eye or amputation, which to me is a no-brainer. You're gonna report those things. So I will ask those questions. I'm hearing, from the two of you, poorly written, we need to ask some questions.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing too is that I don't know if you want to be specific about the issue, but on the second page, first paragraph, it appears the only difference between that and the first paragraph and that first sentence, it's again, only employee. And it looks like it's saying all that you already said reported immediately. The only different verbiage there is promptly investigated.
so we're,
Okay.
sorry, I'm not sure which one you're looking at.
Second page.
Second page, top paragraph.
Top paragraph. So I heard
It is-
second page, second paragraph.
My
Okay,
my
first paragraph.
point is that it's the exact same verbiage as the first paragraph. And then you have to find what it is that they're asking that differentiates it, and the only thing is, first one says reported, and the second one says promptly investigated. Well, I'm not sure. And also the last sentence, as a result of the investigation, any corrective measures will be acted upon. Okay, add that, but it just is stupid. It's like, how about in the first paragraph, promptly reported and investigated? I mean, why regurgitate everything for promptly investigate? You know what I mean? It's just not.
When I'm going down the road of an investigation, I'm back to the Band-Aid.
We need
Somebody
bigger
cut themselves with a
Band-Aids.
piece of paper. Yeah.
Oh,
we need
actually,
bigger
that's a
Band-Aids.
really good
Well,
point.
are we getting
because-
rid of all paper?
Yeah.
Do we need to,
Mhm.
how do we
Yeah.
act
So-
on that to keep it from
You need to wear
happening
safety
again?
gloves.
And John, that's,
Mhm.
this, again, the second page, there's
Yeah.
no note that says it's an OAR. So if that's not required, then you're right, we either define what investigation means on our own, or we leave it out. So,
Well, I think that's a formatting thing, because there's a third page that has OARs.
no, but
But what is that
if
one?
there is an
Yeah.
OAR that is noted to, there should be a note, right?
Mhm.
Not necessarily.
No.
Okay, we'll
No.
find out if that's an
That's
OAR,
not
because if it's not.
footnotes.
If it is, so that goes to the Band-Aid thing. Number one is that doesn't make sense to have a whole separate policy or paragraph when all you have to do is add that to the front if it's an OAR required. Then though to the OAR requirements. just because OAR requires it, then we say, oh, I guess we have to do it. Well, at some point, is there any opportunity to go back and go, change your OAR because this is the stupidest thing we've
Well, then
ever
go back
seen.
to the
You always
legislature.
have- yeah, you
The
always have
OAR is the
that.
legislature.
Yeah.
And that's
To
why
lobby
it's
it.
important for us to be lobbying the legislature to
Yeah,
say
this
this is
is-
unenforceable. This is going to cost us money and time that's not gonna give any information.
You just said what I just said.
Yeah. Yeah,
But you didn't hear my point. My point is when and how, not just going during lobbying session, but go specifically.
I didn't say just
To our-
lobbying session, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I said everything
Uh-huh.
you did. I wasn't
Yeah.
disagreeing. And let's go do it now.
and the issue that we
That's my
have with
point.
it is the the OAR is already in place. So why is it in
Until it
place?
changes, we have to.
What is going on with it? It's badly written. That it's got things that are conflicting in two separate areas. We don't have a district safety officer, do we?
No, and no one serves in this capacity. Things get reported to you. That's your job.
So she just got a new title with beach more money.
No.
Right
All
on.
right.
Yeah.
And then it is also interesting that a catastrophe is not one person dying, two or
Several.
more,
Yep.
two or more.
I will get some more background from OSBA on this
You know
one.
that the definition of law, I'm sure too.
That's
Probably, yeah.
I did not like it from the
Um,
beginning.
Yeah.
And I think probably it would help to get a definition somewhere of what in that very. What is the active use of the word report? Is there a log in the office, used two Band-Aids today?
Mhm.
As opposed to a formal, I have to write something up, I cut myself with a paper, I got a Band-Aid from the box, there were no Band-Aids, I had to. I mean, what does report mean? And then what happens to that report? We're using too many Band-Aids. I don't know. And the question too, John, that Kathy said of. If this is applying to everyone that's in our buildings or on our property. Thing, this would also apply to after-school rental of our properties. So making sure either A, they understand if somebody gets hurt during a performance, an athletic event, whatever, they have to report it to us.
Mhm.
And second of all, does that mean somebody from the district has to be available at some of the, I don't know, what's the reach? It feels badly written.
I don't like it. So,
Poorly written. It's. Yeah.
but I do promise that if I experience an amputation, I'll report it to you. Okay.
I'll deny it.
Okay.
You
Perfect.
didn't have that hard to begin with.
Alright.
So I was down that John's gonna go back to OSPA with
Yep.
all these questions, and then it'll come back to the committee at a later date.
Thank you.
And on that last paragraph, it wants monthly reports. Monthly and annual analyses of accident
To whom?
submitted to the superintendent or the board, it's bracketed.
Yes.
And that goes back to, in saying this without sarcasm as well, why would you want to see the amount of Band-Aids, back to that
Where's
example?
the- I
that
think
were
monthly is-
administered? Mhm.
Crossed out.
It's in it says illnesses occurring in the district and monthly and annual such reports be descended, so it's the last paragraph.
Last paragraph on.
On the second page, sorry, second page, the records will include. And occurring in the district and monthly and annual analysis of accident data. Such reports submitted to the board. It would have to be
Feels like monthly
so,
was crossed out at the bottom, but
so the
yeah.
only thing that it would ever be of a somewhat interest to the board. Is if we had one of our school sites
Yes,
that was using 500 boxes of Band-Aids.
yes.
And another school site's using 2 boxes. We might wanna know what's going on at that school.
Mhm.
Are they just using them for decoration? Or are kids having
They're
Band-Aid
teaching
fights?
first aid, and so they're.
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
Band-Aids on sick animals.
Yeah, and so, again, but what would we,
And to your earlier question too, that would, the district safety committee and discipline committee would be looking at that kind of data as well. We would be looking at, in all seriousness, if a building was experiencing a heightened level of injury and things, we would be looking at it as well.
right,
Okay.
is there a problem on the playground?
Yes.
Is there a problem with a piece of equipment? So does this policy from our standpoint, rather than referencing a district safety officer, does there need, if we stay with this? which we have to,
Mhm.
some reference to the safety committee.
Yeah.
That information may go to the safety committee,
Well, let me-
because we don't, the board doesn't even get reports from the safety.
Well,
committee.
just so you know, the OSHA requirements for safety committee and our forms match this. We've
Okay.
redone all of that.
Okay.
Is injury information.
Mhm.
Accidents that are a pattern. All of that stuff is included in the building safety committee minutes.
Does it include visitors?
It does. If
So
there's
it
an injury,
includes
there's an injury.
non-students,
Yes.
it includes, so if it's at a
Anything.
football game or it's at a
Mhm.
concert.
Yes,
Okay.
it does not get into the minutia of the Band-Aid or other things,
Mhm.
but does get into injuries. It gets into injuries when staff and student injuries. But all of that is part of our safety committee process. It's on the minutes. We review that monthly.
Well, you better put the Band-Aids. if you want to
I
Yeah.
might want to add the Band-Aids to that. So,
And so then, just not that I want to have another deal, but I don't recall that the board has ever seen that, even on an
No.
annual basis,
No.
a compilation of an annual,
Well, but we are now, right?
yeah,
yeah,
Right.
So it looks like we're gonna get into operations.
and you might want to
Yeah.
read
By
into it
policy,
really,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
okay. I will call OSBA, thank you.
yeah. Yeah, okay,
I can provide
so that one will not come back to,
for schools.
so back to rewrite.
What's that, Nicole?
I can provide like a log for the schools, like this. Like EA's licensed admin, and then,
I don't even know if I'd want to see maybe, I don't know what I'd want to see, elementary school.
Before we go down the line
Yeah.
of problem solving, let me talk to OSBA.
Yeah.
first, and then we'll-
cause I used to do something similar to that, where I would keep a log
Mhm.
of any incident
Uh-huh.
report. I mean, all the incident reports.
Right,
Be like, this school, this
the
school.
ones
this
that you
school,
know
this school. Yeah,
That's not a bad idea, just for our
Because of
incident
the
reports.
Band-Aids, right?
We should probably
It's
keep a
gonna
log
be-
like that, we can reference it real quickly.
Mm.
I'm more wondering about the minutia piece that we get into too, but anything that's reported to this level, keeping a log of that in an
Mm.
organized way makes sense.
that's normally what happens, like, if somebody sends in an incident report,
Mhm.
I do a form, I send it to the employee, I send a copy to supervisor and the head secretary. So that way everybody's in the know, and then it has to do with facilities or
Right.
SSSO or whatever the case may be.
okay, and then it,
So there, and then,
and then it could also be, as far as where the board might ever come into it, but like, if there was a building that was using 500 bandages and the other one was just using 2,
yeah,
is there from an administrator perspective, something that the board, hey, we're working on something here?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
yeah,
But again, not getting into, why are you using 500
right,
bandages?
yeah,
No.
what's going on, yeah.
Okay. And I might
All right.
look at some of those ORSs and see what they're trying to tell us about.
I have my
Okay.
direction. Our next
Okay.
policy, if we are ready, is EBCA, and you're welcome to stay if you would like, but you can go.
What is,
It's safety back.
oh, I'm out of here.
Okay, all right,
All right.
okay.
Always.
And so this one was part of the April packet that. we did.
This was part of the fall packet.
Oh, okay, it just has revised 4/4/24.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it didn't come to us until August, September, whenever this packet came.
got it.
And again, just randomly,
Mhm. I think the legislature passed law related to this, in the last session, but yes.
Yeah, that's what the yellow at the, well, yeah, yellow at the top.
it's just almost,
Required policy,
Yes.
required
Bad timing.
policy comes from.
Mhm.
or-
Yeah, yeah.
We do, I mean, for the most part, this is not hard to meet, especially when they give you that 24 hour window.
Uh-huh.
In the middle of an incident, you don't necessarily have time to notify public or you're working. But notifying the public electronically in their language, because Parent Square translates to 105, 106 different languages, something like that. This is not overly burdensome. From my perspective, I've run it by the principals. What do you think? Is this hard? Where are hurdles? They didn't have too many concerns. It does codify more and it,
Mhm.
here's the optics of this, which is concerning.
Yeah.
That by random chance, we get this policy from OSBA in August or September. And now we're looking at it, and now we're gonna codify that we don't have to notify anybody until at least 24 hours. We aren't. That is the 24 hours in ORA, OAR.
I believe so.
Okay,
Mhm.
so optically,
Mhm.
it looks like we're now gonna make a policy
Mhm.
that says we don't have to tell you within, until at least, or have to tell you only within 24 hours.
Yes,
People are gonna look at that and go, oh, great.
yeah,
It's, the optics could not be worse timing. So
Agreed.
our options are,
Mhm.
not that this ever gets out into the public, but I mean, like, generally, hey, we have a new policy, like all
Yeah.
of these. But if, I don't know how we say we are responding to the new OAR.
At the safety summit.
well, yeah,
Or we, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we bring it up. I don't want to
No.
bring it up just to say that, because that's worse.
it is worse.
I want somehow, I don't want to be tone deaf.
I agree.
If we have
Mhm.
questions, I want to
Agreed.
be prepared for why this is here now, so that the exact same message is given every time anybody asks the question, right?
Yeah, I think I can address it if it does come up, but legislature passed this. We've now had an opportunity to consider it as a board. And own it, understand this is the timing, however, this is our process and this is what we do.
And as long as it's all by OAR and we didn't choose to now,
Yeah.
we aren't
Yeah.
dictating 24, we're
But
just
I-
following OAR.
I can't think of a
ORS, sorry.
circumstance where we didn't notify people as soon as we possibly could. About things that were happening either. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, this is a question, John.
Mhm.
At the bottom, it has legal references.
that's,
At the top in the yellow, it
Yeah.
has a legal reference that's not listed down below. Oh, no, it is, sorry, I just looked at it wrong.
oh, yeah,
It
okay.
is, it's the third.
Oh, yeah, 339,
Yeah,
324. I
It's
see
like
it.
that yellow will go away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they-
you know, I just was looking at it and I was seeing, I didn't see the last part.
So
Okay,
that's
so
what
it's
the
down there.
read is. Yeah,
So, in thinking about this then, John,
Mhm.
um. The law says not later than 24 hours.
Yes.
If our practice
Mhm.
is less than that,
Yes.
do we want to put that in policy?
Oh, I see.
So the law says you gotta do it within 24 hours.
What
I
else
don't
is,
want to put it in there, though, that says within 3 hours and
But
we
we say,
can't.
that, I look for the exact same thing, and we
Yeah.
say
Uh-huh.
as expediently
Expediently
as
as
possible.
possible.
The only
Yeah.
way to make that, stand out more
Mhm.
is, when a schooler initiates an electronic communications, or shall issue an electronic communications, you could put that in there. You could add a sentence that says, it is Gresham-Barlow's practice to do so as, immediately as possible. It already says it,
Yeah.
but by adding that, the definitively intentional, here's what we do. I don't know, it says it already says it in there, but if you want to point it out.
And then you
What-
could just,
One thing, though, I have to say is, if you'll notice, it talks about the communication must include all of these things. It'll be provided. Okay. So now it says finally down below, it will also be issued to employees. Nowhere above does it say where the communication will be sent, to whom it will be sent. It says it will be issued in culturally appropriate languages to effectively communicate with parents and guardians of students. So I guess it's gonna go to parents and guardians of students, but is it to the public? Is it teachers? Is it board? Is it community?
it doesn't say board and it should, but it also says. If you get down to that second last paragraph, will also be issued to employees of the school
So-
with a
so-
safety threat.
So
Mhm.
randomly and
Mhm.
extemporaneously to the main purpose for the policy,
Mhm.
we're gonna put it in culturally appropriate languages for students and parents, so I guess we're sending it to them.
Mhm.
It will also be sent to employees. To where is this communication going? It isn't stated in the policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You
and
will communicate with whom?
Well, the parents and students attending the school,
the
and-
staffs of school.
where am I at? The staff,
Anecdotally, because they don't say they'll communicate, they'll only say, you'll do it in culturally appropriate
no, to
language.
effectively communicate.
I know,
So issue electronic communication. And it will be So I don't understand where that one isn't saying it is gonna be sent to the parents and guardians.
Right, Chris,
And,
I know, it's like, it's trying to translate the language here.
it's culturally appropriate. I
No.
Understand.
No, I mean, you and I.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
If the purpose is to communicate,
Mhm.
then it seems, uh, make a lot more sense is if you define where is this communication going, first and foremost? It is for the community? Is it for parents and students? Is it for staff? Is it for board? Where is the communication? We are going to communicate to whom? Who's the audience? And now within that audience,
Mhm.
make sure it's culturally appropriate for students and parents.
Oh, so you're looking more of a, how's the languaging in this going?
That's-
As opposed to, I see what you mean.
Because
I get
if,
Mhm.
so if you didn't, if it wasn't, if the language didn't need to be culturally appropriate for parents and students, you wouldn't know it was going to them.
Got it. So
And then it says also employs.
if that.
So also employees, so employees are also to whom? Only parents and students, because they're the only ones mentioned. So it seems like there should be a over umbrella. Where is it
Communications
going?
will include.
Who is it?
Hmm,
To whom?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We're
Yeah,
putting it
yeah.
in the
parent-
universe? Is it on the cloud? Is it on Google?
And then the
Where is it
subset
going?
of
And
and
then
it's
all-
going
yeah.
to, and then the culturally appropriate.
And
stuff.
that's my point. I see the subsets, but
It's
it's something missing.
disjointed.
Oh,
And to some, and this is part of, I'm not sure where it fits in policy. As opposed to practice, definitely the board gets notified,
Yeah, oh, that's our
and it
practice.
doesn't say.
It
And
doesn't
then,
require. it in law.
and then, kind of as we found
Mhm.
in, circumstances. The direct impact to the building in which something occurred. However, the interaction with other employees in and around that space.
Yes.
Then creates misunderstanding, miscommunication, when it's not sent to all staff.
And
And some staff are receiving information from media instead of from our,
And we send it to all staff, so you know how Parent Square works, it's, their groups are set up,
I don't know how Parent Square works because I don't use Parent Square.
okay. Parent Square is our best tool,
Okay.
but all groups are set up, like if it's going to Gresham High School staff, it's all staff, period.
Uh-huh.
If it's going to Gresham High School community, it's parents, and then at the high school level, we have the option of students, and we include students.
Uh-huh.
So it goes out real quickly to everyone, no matter what, they're built into it,
In the building with which it occurred.
in the building.
And I'm
Yeah.
asking also
Mhm.
because say our high schools have the greatest number of students
Mhm.
and staff,
Mhm.
it impacts, the spread is bigger
It
in
is.
the impact.
Mhm.
And so I think in some of our communications where it has gone primarily to the central site,
Mhm.
then the rest of our district employees and students and family
Mhm.
are hearing about it filtered through the media. And they're not hearing about it from our view.
I
Because we're
see.
focusing on the place where it happened, but the place where it happened is the Gresham-Barlow School District.
Yeah.
So that's a bigger
It
thought.
is it's a bigger question, and do we notify every staff member and every family every time something comes up, because it's pervasive, and I think that
Well-
would scare a community.
And, but depending on, I mean, this is a safety threat. This is elevated to a little bit higher circumstance.
Yeah.
And as we learn and as things are changing.
So I was thinking about something else.
Okay,
You're suggesting, because right now, any threat to a school goes to that school,
Yes,
not to the entire district. And are you just suggesting that we send all of that out to a district?
well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. A lockdown, lockout, shelter in place or evacuation.
even
High
for instance,
school.
yesterday, there was a whole.
I heard that.
Right.
Right.
It was related to a medical
Right.
piece, I think, sending anything like that out to an entire district. might not
No,
necessary.
but that's not gonna make the news.
True, so
But
let's
sometimes
talk,
it does if you see an ambulance in a school.
yes,
But not in the
It makes
same
social
way.
media.
but
Yeah.
that makes sense to me.
Mhm,
Threats wise,
cause the
Knowing that-
ambulance is not.
99.9% of them are not, we investigate, we find
Mhm.
that. And they happen so often, countrywide. There's two concerns I have. One, you do end up scaring the community.
Mhm,
The second piece is then you have that cry wolf piece
right,
and people start to get desensitized to it. And then we don't get things reported because everything ends up being, this never happens anyway.
right.
So I don't wanna, it's a tough piece.
And the other part is that if in, your experience or professional opinion,
Mhm,
that a threat comes in that goes beyond a school,
mhm.
then you're gonna take
We're gonna take
action that's
Uh-huh,
We
pertinent to
will.
that.
uh-huh.
But I wouldn't put into, yeah, I have.
I'm just trying to figure out how,
Over,
Yep.
yeah, and,
And we-
and just at some point of being able to communicate in a way. So again, our district employees and families, when it's something that is making extreme public,
The other potential political fallout here, and there's no way to solve it, is this.
uh-huh,
Number two says the duration of time the safety threat action was taken. Sometimes it takes days
right,
to figure things out.
right,
I think I might have solved your concern.
okay,
Mhm.
And the communication would be specific to the school.
Yes.
Period,
Mhm.
mhm,
but, and not necessarily as the threat, but as a, learning opportunity. Then to every school in Parent Square, to every parent,
Mhm.
just as a reminder,
We
mhm,
could,
review this policy, here's our process. And that says that there's no threat to anybody other than the school.
mhm,
People saw what happened, everything was followed, we did everything we're supposed to. And so that you're aware,
uh-huh.
here's
Here's,
our,
here's what you do.
here's our
If you hear
process.
it at your school.
You can expect us to take these, you know,
Mhm,
I mean, it's a good reminder, but if that's it's after the fact.
yep.
uh-huh,
Everybody's fine.
Mhm.
And if you have concerns, because you know what that does, is that instead of, them guessing what, it's always the evaluation, well, you didn't do what I thought you should do. Yeah, well,
Uh-huh.
we're not gonna do what you thought we should do. We're gonna do base what our policy says.
Mhm.
And we're gonna follow that to a T, which we did in this incident.
Do you
Maybe.
mind if I take this back to principals too with those suggestions, see what they think as well?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and I'm sure they've got lots of ideas about
There are two potential
Mhm.
challenges here with how the law is written as well. The first one is that number two, the duration of safety. I can think of 3 or 4 occasions over the past 4 years where it took police several days to do this. And then had we sent out an explanation of how things were resolved or what they were doing,
it, right,
it would have gotten in
It
the way
would've-
of an investigation
yeah.
and it would have been a lie because it wasn't resolved.
right,
You see what I mean? So that 24-hour requirement does put us in things that take a while in a challenge.
So, okay,
Oh.
but it says. General
Yeah.
description,
Yeah,
yeah,
the duration and an explanation of how it was.
well, except that I would have to say that like number two,
Mhm.
you, and again. Okay. I don't even know where to go with this. If that 24 hours of how it was resolved, it means that an ORS is dictating
Mhm.
how long anyone has to investigate and evaluate a situation, which I would then say,
Mhm.
and I'd love to personally check in with this,
Mhm.
with the chief that says.
Mhm.
Is it legal for ORS to dictate a time frame by which you need to do an investigation? No.
No.
All right, well, then this is not within the law, so they just implemented you know what I mean?
I'll run this by the chief too. But even let's just take something that doesn't result in a criminal piece. An online threat overnight, which they happen.
mhm,
So typically it's a parent notifies Safe Oregon or the police notify us because they found something. That's how it comes. So we get our attention. So then you're talking to social media accounts, Instagram, other things, trying to identify who would have put in there. That takes time as well. You do want to get notifications out. If you haven't solved it by early morning, you want to get notification out to the community. We've had one, but you're not gonna be able to say it was resolved.
Well, right, but all of these things, duration of time the safety threat action was taken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if that's all we have to do, we can say, and we are investigating,
We could,
and we are taking steps to determine.
right,
And only upon which those are all done, and when I brought in police, it wasn't necessarily that it was a police action, it could even be
Yeah.
yours. Nobody should be able to dictate, and we've got to find some loophole to where we can go back to the legislature and say, it's not even legal what you did here, so take that out. We demand you take it out, but
Well, and I'll go back to OSBA too, and I'll ask him about this one as well. I'll set up a time, because I do have concerns about, I don't have concerns about notifying the community.
as
I
long as
have,
we can do so
Yes.
in a continuum.
yes,
We're gonna update you when we have more, but right now, this is all we have.
Well, and because it starts
What
with,
you
I mean,
guys
the very
doing?
first thing, a general description of the issue. That's it. But then it gets the duration of the time from when it was initiated until it was concluded. But we're supposed to do that 24 hours after the initiation of the safety threat action. What if it's not concluded? That's what you just said, John, right?
Mhm.
Well,
And
24
then-
hours doesn't even give you time to
Yeah,
convene your staff.
right. If it
With all the
happens on a
Yeah.
Sunday night,
It does
like you
not.
said, and
Mhm.
then, to resolve it and to protect, yeah, that. And then an explanation of how the situation was resolved.
I will go back and now,
The timing seems a little bit,
I might need an
Had a
hour
touch.
with OSBA.
make sure you talk to Spencer.
I will,
That would be a mess you guys.
I will do that.
If it's number, if you need it.
I should also, actually, these concerns, I should go to ODE about the timeline concerns, because until I presented this to you guys, I hadn't even thought about unresolved issues within 24 hours. What kind of position
And-
does that put us in?
And if something comes in,
Mhm.
even, not even the Sunday night, it comes in Friday night.
Yep.
And then you've got Saturday and Sunday, which are technically not work days,
No, they are not.
and yet you have to work on it to have something resolved by Sunday morning.
Yes, we do. And we would. Problem is that we may
Maybe, if
not
you
have it
could.
resolved.
If,
Yeah.
yeah, depending on what the circumstance was, who you had to get involved to resolve it, how big it was and how verifiable it
And
was.
then add on, that's all just a non-criminal
Mhm.
result. Then
What
add on
happens
a
if it's criminal?
criminal.
Right,
They cannot require that.
Well, even with our latest incident, without getting specific, the police had criminal concerns and that took a while,
As it should.
as it should.
yeah. Okay,
So.
That is the last-
That'll come back to the committee.
Yep.
at some point.
That is what we had for the committee today.
okay, and then I had a question earlier,
Mhm.
before we were getting started. We have several of our policies that talk about an annual plan
Yes.
needing to be updated. One of them that I was looking for recently is policy JHH.
JHH.
Suicide prevention.
Oh, thank you.
And the last time we looked at that policy has been 4 years. There's some things a little bit out of date with it, and I couldn't find a plan anywhere on the district about it. So I'm not sure what the annual plan. Okay.
So we're all
You're here
done.
right as we're
Good to
finished.
go.
I wondered.
We've assigned 3 things to you to work on. Yeah, yeah.
JHH. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Mine was outside this morning. So mine was.
I'm reading it as a plan must be available annually. It doesn't necessarily need to be
I
updated.
can't, there isn't one I could find anywhere.
Okay, so you're looking for the plan, not necessarily an annual review. of the
Well,
plan.
but it also, if it's an annual plan, somebody's gotta be looking at it annually, and I can't find one.
Yeah, I think it's in the counseling, comprehensive counseling.
Is it on the website?
Updated.
So it's not
Gresham-Barlow
super
School
easy
District
for a
Counseling
community member
Program.
or a parent to find it then. And if it's an annual plan, should that be part of just a general review? Somehow, some way, because as I read that annual plan, because some of what I was even reading in the policy isn't exactly as current for being 4 years old. You're right, that noise is kind of.
It's tracking.
It's insane. I'm
It
like,
just started.
no, it's been going the
It's been
whole
going the
hour
whole
and a half.
time. It's been going the whole time.
Well, I mean, it just started today, because I
Today,
didn't
yeah.
hear it
Oh,
yesterday.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they turned the heat on.
So it might also be that we need to not have it called Abby's Act.
It needs to be
There's
called
the-
suicide prevention.
Because I wouldn't know to look it up.
But it says Addie's Act Resource Guide, Suicide Prevention, Intervention, and Postvention is on our.
So when I look up policy JHH, none of that shows up.
When you look up the policy,
Yeah, because that's what I looked up, suicide prevention, the policy that says we have to have with an annual review. And I wouldn't know to look it up under Addie's Act. Or anything else.
well, so.
I'm sorry, I'm not being
Yeah, no,
fussy,
I
I'm
get
just,
that.
you know, it's that one I couldn't find information.
Prevention. On our website, I'm not on
Yeah.
the,
Uh-huh,
So I went to,
and then I was just asking, when we have policies that mention an annual plan, how is that recorded? Does that mean the plan has to be reviewed annually? What does that mean in terms of an annual plan? Just check it off, we still have it, nothing changed with it? And who looks
Well,
at that?
I know the counseling plan is a part of Division 22, so I know it's part of that review process.
But when it's in policy,
Yeah,
then where does that fall in with making sure that? Because I don't think I brought that printout. Together.
we titled the Addie's Act page suicide prevention.
yeah, because it does reference
Mhm.
policy and
Yeah, so it says the plan must be made available annually to the community, including and readily available in the district office and the district website. So I didn't agree that it was readily available. I couldn't easily find it. I mean, I didn't dig deep into it, but the things I was looking for, I couldn't find it.
Annual notice.
I think it's more about probably changing the title. So that it's searchable differently.
In the annual notice, we could add to the annual, because there are,
There are other ones that we have to annually.
there's
say
about
we have it.
100 that we have to annually
At least
notify the
say we have-
community on.
Yeah. that
So we
have.
could, just
Mhm.
add Addie's Act, suicide prevention, Addie's Act page
Right.
to the annual notice that we do. And we
Right.
do it twice a year.
And the
Mhm.
fact, yeah, again, that there's a comprehensive prevention plan. Where is that at? And that should be updated fairly often as different resources are available, different options are available.
Okay.
And some of the items on the policy are not actually in the plan.
Well, I think the other thing is counseling is embedded under innovation and partnerships.
And it should be
It
just out.
should be its own thing,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or at least both places.
Saw that too.
and it's, yeah, it's part of the plan of referencing on the policy item number 7 and number 8. Or what I was looking for in the plan, and second by the plan.
So is this,
It wasn't one that we brought up, it was just one I was looking for it, just to see, and then I just started going down a rabbit trail of.
This could be a pretty simple fix on one thing, because I agree, the counseling needs to be separate in its own thing.
Because it's not, I wouldn't look to that.
No.
If I was looking for information, that's not
No.
where I would go look.
And if we change the Addie's Act page to suicide prevention.
Right,
Addie's
which is
Act,
what the law says.
Yes, then we could be. Mhm. Okay,
And then just again, making sure that,
and
on
then,
the policy number 7 and 8 are addressed, that I could find in the plan.
alrighty, I think with that, we may be good.
Okay,
9:28.
okay, all right,
We
Yes,
have to
we
get
are.
to a building here, I think.
okay. So are we good? We
I
got
think
everything?
we
Thank
are
you,
good
Diane.
today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
nice to meet you.
Okay, so I will call us adjourned. And do we actually, John, before I do that, Do we have another meeting? We don't have another one scheduled.
Oh, we do, I believe.
Oh, do we? Oh, wait a second. Did I get a notice of that?
The 15th, November 15th.
Yep,
And you got a notice and I said I may or may not be here for that.
Okay, so I probably
won't
already
know
clicked it to
till-
get it on my calendar, because there's a lot going on in November.
Okay. yeah, November 15th, 8 to 9:30.
Okay, let me make sure I got it on here. Yes, I do. Okay, it's on there. So our next meeting will be November 15th in probably the large conference room of the Gresham-Barlow School District office. With that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.